Clyde Monster by Robert L. Crow. Illustrated by K. Choro. Focus questions. What fears have you tried to get over? How did you do it?
Clyde wasn't very old, but he was growing uglier every day. He lived in a large forest with his parents. Father Monster was a big, big monster and very ugly, which was good. Friends and family usually make fun of a pretty monster. Mother Monster was even uglier and greatly admired. All in all, they were a picture family, as monsters go. Clyde lived in a cave. That is, he was supposed to live in a cave, at night anyway. During the day, he played in the forest, doing typical monster things like breathing fire at the lake to make the steam rise. He also did typical Clyde things, like turning somersaults that made large holes in the ground and generally bumping into things. He was more clumsy than the average monster. At night, Clyde was supposed to go to his cave and sleep. That's when the trouble started. He refused to go to his cave. "Why?" asked his mother. "Why won't you go to your cave?" "Because," answered Clyde, "I'm afraid of the dark." "Afraid," snorted his father until his nose burned. "A monster of mine afraid? What are you afraid of?" "People," said Clyde. "I'm afraid there are people in there who will get me." "That's silly," said his father. "Come, I'll show you." He breathed a huge burst of fire that lit up the cave. "There, did you see any people?" "No," answered Clyde, "but they may be hiding under a rock and they'll jump out and get me after I'm asleep." "That is silly," pointed out his mother with her pointed tongue. "There are no people here. Besides, if there were, they wouldn't hurt you." "They wouldn't?" asked Clyde. "No," said his mother. "Would you ever hide in the dark under a bed or in a closet to scare a human boy or girl?" "Of course not," exclaimed Clyde, upset that his mother would even think of such a thing. "Well, people won't hide and scare you either. A long time ago, monsters and people made a deal," explained his father. "Monsters don't scare people, and people don't scare monsters." "Are you sure?" Clyde asked. "Absolutely," said his mother. "Do you know of a monster who was ever frightened by a people?" "No," answered Clyde after some thought. "Do you know of any boys or girls who were ever frightened by a monster?" "No," he answered quickly. "There," said his mother. "Now off to bed." "And no more nonsense about being scared by people," ordered his father. "Okay," said Clyde as he stumbled into the cave. "But could you leave the rock open just a little?"
So first graders, you should remember that we filled out a character map for this. Now you're in second grade, so you're going to be creating your own character map. But let's go ahead and review what the expectations are for making your own character.
The first thing you should think about is the character's problem in that story. After you've thought of the problem and you've written it down in a complete sentence, then you want to think to yourself, how did that character's problem get solved in the story? Notice that when Paige filled this out, she wrote in complete sentences and wrote down complete answers when she was thinking about the character's problem and solution. The next thing you're going to think about are the character's character traits, things about that main character that tell you what kind of a person he or she is. So Paige thought that Clyde was scared, clumsy, and brave. Now, she didn't just tell me the character traits, she also proved it to me from using things from the story to prove how she knew he was scared, how she knew he was clumsy, and also how she knew that he was brave in the end. After you've thought about character traits, then you want to think to yourself, what do you know about the character? So what are some conclusions that you can draw about the character based on how he or she acted in the story? The last thing you're going to think about is how did the character change over time? In this story, Clyde was very scared to go to bed, but over time, he learned to be brave after his mom and dad talked to him, and in the end, I would say that Clyde was very brave by going to bed by himself. In the end, you'll draw a sketch of your character along with your character's name, and don't forget your name up at the top.
So first graders, now second graders, you are going to be creating your own character. So you're not filling this out for Clyde Monster or another character that you've read in a book. You're going to be the author and you are going to create your own character. You're going to need to kind of think through the plot of your story and come up with your problem and solution a little bit of the story so that you can go ahead and fill out how did the character solve the problem and what kind of character traits. And although in the example that we saw right before this, Paige proved that from the story, you're going to need to prove that by telling me about what would be in your story that would prove that character trait. And then you're going to also need to include how did your character change over time. So think about what your character is going to be like at the beginning of your story and how that character is going to change throughout the story. And then up here at the top where it says, what do you know about the character? You're going to want to include some character traits about the character and even some things that are just a little bit different. Like you could have included for Clyde that he was ugly because in the story it stated that. You can include anything that you really want your reader to know about your character. And then in the end you can go ahead and draw a character and write your character's name. When you come in to check-in, please bring this with you because you're going to need it to share with the teacher your character, and then you're going to have the opportunity to make a mask that's like your character, and you're also going to be acting out what your character would be like. So we look forward to seeing you.
One last thing, boys and girls, is if you're having a hard time brainstorming character trait ideas, don't forget that on the back of your page, there's a whole list of character traits that you can kind of pick from when you're brainstorming your own character. We will see you
later.
soon.